What's going on, everybody? Welcome back. Another low-grade Friday auction to look through here. We're going to sort by ending soonest. Okay. All right, let's get into it. Okay, let's see here. I got the early stuff, the T206 cards. Looking for that Addy Joss and the red Ames, but that's about it in that area. We got some beat up Goudy cards here. Okay. Big picture wise for me, again, not really anticipating being very active or making any bids this evening, but I still like to see what is running. And I just like to look at the cards, so helps me kind of just put a lot of different ideas in place in my head, and not even just with vintage, but just with cards across the board. I think the more sort of categories that you're familiar with, and prices and all that kind of stuff. I just think it helps make sort of relative value assessments. So, a bunch of Bowman stuff here. It's Sid Luckman. It's a card I'm always kind of keen on. Doak Walker. Let's go back and look at that Sid Luckman real quick. I'm curious about the back. I'm sure that's probably pretty rough. I think they had one of these last week, if I remember right. Yeah, I think you could find a probably nicer copy of this one. So that'd be a pass for me. But cool card, 48 Bowman. What's the internet gonna do here? There we go. So, but yeah, excited for another Fanatics Weekly. It's a pretty big auction this week. I see a lot of cards that are interesting running. The Johnny Mize to the 49s. Got Yogi Berra there. Some Bowman football, some 50 Bowman baseball. Got a Bob Feller. Okay. Got a Don Newcomb rookie. That's pretty nice on the front, but not a card I would be going for right now. Sid Luckman and the 1950 Bowman. Okay. Yeah, we'll watch that one. More Bowman. On the Bowman sets, I think there's some pretty good value there, and I like them. I don't have any. I don't think I've ever had any from the 50 set. I get into some Burke Ross. I like 51 Bowman. Okay. Got a lot of early stuff this week. Nothing's really jumping out at me yet. Nice Hank Thompson there. I used to have this card, Bobby Thompson, shot heard around the world. Can't remember if that was that same season. It might have been right around there, which is probably why I had that card. Sam Jethro, nice. All right, get into the 51s. I'll be completely honest, I don't like these. I never have. I just don't like how they look. I think they're cool just in the terms of significance, but just the appearance, it's never been there for me. All right, I like it when we get some different sports mixed in here besides just baseball. Now we're into 52. I'm interested in that Willie Mays, the 52 Willie Mays. Yeah, that one there. Probably not a card that I would be thinking about in the short term. This is a card I'd be more interested in maybe, over the next few years. If I have to pay a few hundred more for it, a little ways down the road, so be it. But it's not a card that I think of with any sort of urgency. But it's kind of, it's just kind of one of those 50s cards that I have my mind on. In terms of vintage for me, broadly speaking, I have this card, Luke Easter, I have that. I used to have the Monty Irvin. In terms of vintage broadly, I'm really a 50s guy, I think. I like some of the earlier stuff, some of the pre-war stuff, and especially in non-sport. But when it comes to baseball, outside of the 50s, the 60s, I do like some cards from the 60s, but not nearly as much as the 50s, not even close. And then the 70s and 80s, I don't really feel connected to at all, to be completely honest. I've just never gravitated towards those eras of baseball as much. And this Minoso I love. I used to have this card. I wouldn't mind getting that back again. Probably not that copy, but another one someday. So, but yeah, 50s. I think I could probably just collect 50s vintage and just have it be that. There's so many cards in the 50s that I like. There's that Joe Black. Nice. That's one of them that I'm pretty interested in. Again, it's not rare enough. I mean, relative to other 50s, vintage, it's a more, a card you don't see as much. But again, my approach to all this is I'm doing this in conjunction with ultra modern, and with vintage non-sport primarily. And those other two categories, the rarity level is just so much higher. Ultra modern, I'm really looking just for a few specific cards here and there, whether it's, certain 1/1s or cards out of 5 or, as high as 50. And, I know ultra modern's obviously very diluted now and challenging to navigate, but all of these sort of buying decisions have to be made with, resource calculations in mind and all this kind of stuff. And it's just, you have to have sort of an order of operations. And for me, like I said, I'm willing to pay a little bit more for these 50s cards. I like that Minoso a lot. I'm willing to kind of circle back later on and pay more for these if needed, relative to how much, or, just not being able to get the stuff that I would want to get in ultra modern and non-sport vintage. So that's why. But I do keep myself kind of aware of what's going on by doing stuff like this and just monitoring the market and monitoring, availability. And I sold my Jackie, which was way nicer than that. And this is an interesting thing too. It's like when you sell a card like that, will you end up buying it back down the road? I don't really know. I tend to think I would prioritize owning cards that I've never had before. But who knows? I used to have that Monty Irvin. I love that card. Joe Black, I used to have that. So that Yogi Berra is a great card. John Hussein. So in the 53s now, Warren Spahn, Hoyt Wilhelm. That was one of the first 53 Topps cards I ever got. I had a really, really beat up version of it that I got for like $5 back in the day. And by back in the day, I mean like 3 years ago. So. All right, we got the satchel here. So I did sell mine, which was pretty wild. It was my top card, my card of the year, the first time I ever did my top 100. It's a card I didn't think I would ever really sell, but eventually I just had a one-to-one sort of decision to make. And ultimately, again, like I said, it was just a card that I knew I could get again. However, it's likely going to be way more expensive. I think when I got mine, it was about $175 for a PSA 1.5, and I ended up selling it probably just under 600, somewhat recently within the past 3 months or so. So to get another nice looking copy, and I'm gonna have to be paying up towards $600, $700, $800 or whatever down the road whenever I want to get that back. The Willie Mays I've never owned before, so that would be interesting. Again, I think I would rather go with the 52 Bowman, but I don't know. This is a card I'm always pretty interested in. Not that copy, but yeah, that's definitely one. There's just so many cards in the 50s that I like. I used to have the Gilliam, the short print. That's a great card. I should keep an eye on that one. So now we get into football a little bit. Oh, that was quick. Yeah, a few football cards sprinkled in here. Nothing too much. All right. But yeah, it's really about the 50s for me. Like I said, the 60s, there's a few cards here and there. But honestly, I don't even like that many of the 60s sets, I think I was talking about it last week. I like 62, and then, sorry, I'm distracted. Red Heart Mantle, nice. Oh, that's marked. Yeah. So, but yeah, just the 50s, there's just so many great sets compared to the other, to the 60s and the 70s. The 70s have a couple nice sets too. I like 73, 74, 71. But it's hard to contend with the 50s. It's one of my favorite vintage cards here, the Ernie Banks. I would rather just buy this already graded in a Fanatics weekly auction. I think that's probably a better way to go with that. You can buy already graded ones for probably cheaper than that's going to go for, or ones or 1.5s or whatever. Ted Williams there. I've never really cared for the TVs for the 55s, Bowmans. Al Smith. All right. George Blanda, that's a great card. I always like that card. But again, that's, you can buy a copy of that already graded for probably not that much. So, more Bowman. I'm just going to kind of gloss over those. All right, we get Ted Williams there. Keep an eye on him. I'm not going to dive into the condition too deeply on all these. You can kind of tell what's wrong with it, and then obviously could be anything wrong with the back, but there's a nice looking, sorry, not too interesting at that price. These auctions go high, though. It's just the fact of the matter. It's a highly visible seller. They do the same thing every week. Been doing it for a long time. Tons of eyeballs on all these. So this is not the place for me to look for value most of the time. But love the Johnny Mize. But you never know. Things happen and cards sneak by. That's a gnarly crease there. So I think it's worth paying attention to, but like I said, I'm doing this fairly quickly. It's just cool to look at all these cards, and not, like I said, not necessarily to buy, but it just, just being aware of what cards I like and kind of what the prices are here and then what the prices are other places. And like I said, all that just sort of relative to other categories all sort of works together as one big sort of operation. Hold on, my other phone's ringing. I'm going to mute myself here for a second. All right, we are back. It's still in the 50s. You got the Minoso, you got the Willie Mays. There's the Mantle. Oh, nice. Let's see how bad this one is on the back. This is obviously one of the great 50s cards, but yeah, that would be a deal breaker for me. No way. Just not a paper loss guy. Some people that doesn't really matter. To me, that's a big problem. And for $686, I don't want to pay for any sort of big problems. But that's a card I would look. I'd rather just have it kind of gnarly off center or just creased or whatever than even though you're not looking at the back. I would always know that that's pretty significant paper loss. And on a 50, it's not like a pre-war card or whatever. It's a 50s card, so you got a lot of other options out there. So that would be a big pass for me at that. I can't believe it's that much already. That's wild. But that's probably one of the most iconic cards of the decade. So Ted Williams, Don Drysdale, Hank Aaron. That's a great Hank, but that's not going to work. Frank Robinson. 57, I kind of go back and forth on. Ernie Banks is a great card. The Clemente is a great card. Like the Elston Howard. There's the Mantle. I was already watching that. So, not my favorite, but I'd take 57 tops over most of the cards from this, over most of the sets from the 60s. First standard size baseball card set. Fun fact, if you're not aware, so everybody knows 1957 was the first standard size baseball card, but the first standard size Topps card set period was actually the 1956 Elvis Presley set, which came out before the 57 Topps set. So that distinguished honor of being the first standard size card as we know them today, that's a beautiful Hank, goes to my man Elvis, and I am the proud owner of quite a lot of those cards, and it's probably one of my favorite vintage sets. This is a beautiful card here. Look at that. So this one's at VG, so this is not even technically a beater like most of these other cards. This is one to keep an eye on here. That's a nice Hank. Very nice card. So that one, the Bart Star, 58 Topps football is great, by the way. The Bart Star on the Unitas, specifically the Unitas, is great. Let's see, maybe they have one here. 58 Topps is so beautiful too. The Mantle, gosh. I don't know if I like the 56 or the 58 better. Lean towards the 56 just because it's the Triple Crown year. It's so iconic, but this card is like just a piece of art. I'd be okay with that amount of paper loss on the back too. That would be fine. I wouldn't pay this much for a raw copy though, because that's going to go higher than that, obviously. I just think you can find nicer ones already graded for cheaper, just at weekly auctions probably. That's like the only interesting, not the only, but it's one of the more interesting things about the PWC, the Fanatics Weekly, is the sometimes the vintage doesn't go underpriced, but it goes like reasonably priced to where you might be able to, like where the bins are typically very high. Those weekly auctions tend to land at more realistic numbers, but I don't know. It varies obviously pretty significant from card to card and week to week. So, and some Fleer. I'm going to drink some coffee and mute myself while I keep scrolling here. There's a nice Willie Mays. All right. Nearing the end of the 50s, and once we get past the 50s, the scrolling is going to speed up a little bit. I got about 6 more minutes here before I have to do something else. Right, so got Clemente. Yep. Alright, now there's Unitas, 1960 tops. There was a Jim Brown, that's nice. Always like that Jim Brown card from 60 tops. It's a cool one. Alright, we're frozen here. There we go. Okay. Bob Gibson. I like the 60 Bob Gibson. Yeah, but these, not really. Nah, if I was going to buy any vintage baseball card right now, it'd be a 50s card. I'll still always watch the Mantle and all that, but it's just not where my money's heading at the moment. Very little money to head anywhere, but what I do have, it's got to be very, very strategically deployed, and that is not the 1960s. Although there are a handful of cards that I would like. I'd like the 61 Mantle. I'd like the 62 Mantle. I would like the 62 Hank. I would like the 63 Mantle. I would like the 64. A lot of Mantles, basically, is what I'm getting at. And there's some Willie Mays. I would like as well. I think I would like the 67 Mays would be one of them. There's the Maris. Everybody loves the 61 Maris, of course, for the home run record. Ron Santo with the Cup. That's a nice one. I want to get to the later. I don't. Yeah. I'm not crazy about Willie's photo there. Or just the 61 design in general. It's just never really quite landed for me. It's simple, which I like. You get big sort of portrait images, but I don't know. Just a personal preference, I guess. Okay, I want to get to. I'm running out of time here. I want to see like the later 60s. Okay, there we go. All right, Clemente. That's a great card. 62 Clemente, beautiful. Usual. There's the Mantle, off center pretty badly. Willie Mays, not crazy about that. I like Willie Mays' old stuff in the later 60s, and I like Mantle's stuff in the early 60s. I don't know, just for whatever, just the way the photographs fell for those guys. Although I do like both of their 67s. I would like to see if they have those in this auction. So I'm going to do a kind of a hyper scroll here, but I do want to see if there's a 63 Mantle though. Bob Gibson in 63 is great. I'm going to run out of time here. Oh well, I just really want to get to 67. Let me skip a couple pages here. '66, almost there. 66. Oh, come on. Gosh, the internet just sucks today, man. Yeah, we're up against it now. 67. There we go. Okay. I want to see the mantle and the maze. 67, 50, Philadelphia Unitas is good. Okay, come on. Where are we here? There we go. God, that's a great card. Minimum size, though. Whenever they say stuff like that, I just get a little nervous, so not going to be going for that one, but there we go. Okay, now let's look at this guy here. I would like to get just a cheap one of these, just to have it for a while, and then you can always get a better copy later on. This one looks pretty gnarly. Like, I don't really like that on the hat. Nah, that's just, that's a little, whenever there's like kind of like stuff on the card like that, that's just not. If it was like a way more expensive, like a 52, you know, or a 53, you know, whatever, like that'd be a different story. But yeah. All right. I got to call it there. I got to get to another meeting, but appreciate you guys. Have a good weekend. We'll be back on probably on Monday. So, all right. Have a good